Good morning, everyone. So I want to thank Marek and the board and anyone who had anything to do with inviting me. I'm thrilled to be here. I love being at St. Stan's. I have many just warm feelings with past interactions with such wonderful people here. So just want to start off that way saying I'm really glad to be here. And I realize the occasion that we're celebrating today is really a monumental one. 100 years since the Polish people were reunited again after 120 years of being erased as a nation because they were gobbled up by Russia and Germany and Austria. As I read the history of the subjugation that led to the erasure of Poland, maybe because I'm a priest and because I was supposed to give a homily on this occasion, my mind just went to what is it in Scripture that might speak to this important feast. And it was really clear in an instant what is the passage from Scripture that speaks to this, and that would be the deliverance of the people of God from the slavery that they experienced in Egypt. And if we're going to think of how horrible it was to be erased as a people and to be subjugated by other people, and then we think of the subsequent subjugations of Polish people that reawakened all of that, and if we're to think of what it would be like to be a slave in Egypt, and we're to concentrate on this in 2018, what we have to be thinking about is what we're learning today about trauma. In the field of psychotherapy today, the most exciting new trend that we cannot ignore anymore is the effect of trauma on the brain and how it affects our behavior. We pay attention to soldiers coming back from war, and we don't just say, oh, you had a rough time, get with it, get moving. No, we realize that trauma greatly affects the physical brain itself, and the physical brain itself needs to recover from this horrible experience of trauma. So if we think of the Israelites and the horrible experience of slavery, and they're being released from slavery, if they were simply untreated because of their trauma, then they would wander through the desert, very tempted to be drunk all the time, perhaps beating each other up, perhaps having a horrible low self-esteem, thinking, we'll never amount to anything, I must be horrible because I've been beaten down for generations. And all these things people would be doing if they simply walked out into the desert untreated. God had a different plan. God decided to take these horribly traumatized people and to teach them how to move beyond the trauma of slavery. And there were two lessons that he wanted to give them. One was to learn to trust him, and the other was to learn to trust each other. And so during this divine therapy, there was a transformation of these people. Instead of their experience of slavery dominating them, they began to believe that they can walk in the world and that it doesn't have to be hurting them all the time. That they can walk out with a sense of confidence, that their self-esteem can go up, and that yes, the people around them can actually be trusted and not feared all the time. And they can enter into relationships knowing that I can build a positive, constructive, loving relationship with others. People who theorize about psychotherapy today are discovering a new trend. It's called post-traumatic growth. People who are not just crippled by the experience of trauma, but people who learn to push off of this experience and become the kind of courageous people that we see today in Poland and that we see today here at St. Stan's people who have learned to love and to be courageous despite a difficult history. We need each other. Not everyone experiences post-traumatic growth. Those of us who can move beyond the difficulties of a subjugated past need to be able to share with each other how to move into an open, more embracing, more trusting, more constructive way of moving into the future. It took 40 years for the Israelites to get to the place where they were transformed according to the stories that we have in Scripture. The honest person, it's not just people who have been subjugated by other countries, people who have been ravaged by a violent home, people who have been in slavery. The honest person will admit we've all been traumatized a bit by life. And the honest person will reflect on ways in which we still need to grow, still need to trust more, still need to be willing to risk more in our relationships with each other. And what I want to encourage you to do on this 100th anniversary of Polish independence is to be a people, to be committed to being a people who will always be willing to stretch and to grow and to move beyond the difficult things that have happened to us in our past.